So for this very easy sewing project, you need a piece of batting 10 inches by 5 inches, 2 pieces of main fabric 10 inches by 5 inches, a piece of fabric that measures 12 inches by 5 inches, and if you're using ribbon or lace, you'll want a piece that measures approximately 6 inches. So we're going to put our batting and our main pieces aside for the moment, so I'll just pop those over there. Now I'm going to take the piece of fabric that measures 12 inches by 5 inches and my piece of ribbon, and what I'm going to do with the fabric is fold it in half. So you can see that there, and I'm going to give it a good press along there to get a nice crisp edge. And then I'm going to just lay my ribbon along where I think I like it and just top stitch on either side. Now you don't have to use ribbon, you can use lace as I've done here. Again, you just sew it on either side to keep it secure. And if you don't have ribbon or lace, you can just top stitch. You can see here I've top stitched about 1/8 of an inch from the top and then 1 inch further down. Okay, so back to our piece we're doing now, and you can see that's the folded edge at the top there, and I'm just going to run a row of stitching on either side. So let's go to the machine, and you can see here I've used a thread that matches the ribbon so that it doesn't stand out too much, and I'm just sewing down either side just to secure it in place. So if you've decided not to use ribbon or lace, I'll show you what I do. I just sew about 1/8 of an inch from the folded edge, just one row of stitching along there, and then I come down about 1 inch and do another row of stitching. And I think that looks quite good. It finishes off because this is a fussy fabric and it doesn't really lend itself to a trim. Okay, so back to the piece we're making. Now we just trim our ribbon off so that it's level with the edges, and just snip that off with your scissors. Okay, and you can see there that looks quite nice. I'm quite happy with that. So now let's put it together. We leave the batting on the table, and then we place one of the main pieces of fabric on it with the right side facing upwards, and then we add the pocket piece, and then we take the other piece of fabric, the other main piece, and we just lay that right side facing down, so you now have the wrong side facing you. And what we're going to do, we're going to smooth it all out and make sure everything is lined up, but then we're going to sew around. So we're going to leave a gap of about 2.5–3 inches. We're going to do a back stitch, and then we're going to go right along and sew off the edges, and then you'll come back to where you started and do a back stitch, leaving that gap. Now before we go and sew, we're going to actually either pin or clip this in place, so just make sure everything matches up, and you can see I've got a little bit there I need to adjust, but just clip it all together so that it stays in place while you sew it. There we go. We start with a back stitch and then sew right off the edge. Now do this because we're going to be clipping the corners later on, and this just gives us a firm foundation to work with. Okay, so starting off the edge, or just on the edge, and away we go, and we're sewing with a 1/4 inch seam, and again at the other end we sew off the edge, and we do this all the way around, just removing your clips and your pins as you go. Okay, now when we come up towards where we started, we leave the gap of about 2.5–3 inches and do a back stitch. Okay, so now once we've done that, we just make sure that everything is in place and all the layers have been caught, and yes, it looks fine, and we're just going to clip across the corners. Now make sure you don't clip where the stitches cross, because if you do that your piece is going to unravel. So just so take the bulk off the corners for when we turn it through. Okay, so now we're just going to turn it through that opening that we left, and even with a little bit of an opening it's still a bit tricky because it's a little bit bulky. You just take your time though and push it through, and there we go, we've got it pushed through. And now I'm using an apple core, and I use that to poke out the corners because it's got a nice round edge. You could use a wooden skewer because that's got round edged as well. If you use your scissors, be very careful because you can poke through your stitching or your material, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so there we are, that's turned through nicely. So now we're going to press the piece, and what we're going to do is just make sure that we have the folded edge folded in nicely and give it a good press. And you can see there, that makes it nice and easy for when we come to do the top stitching at the end. Okay, give it a press on the back as well, make sure it's all folded in nicely, that little gap. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch around with about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. And we'll go all the way around, but this time we're going to pivot at the corners. We're not going to sew off the edge. And there you have it, our little pouch is finished. Now these cutlery pouches can be made for all sorts of occasions. Now we did ours in Christmas and Thanksgiving themes, but you can make some for weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, Valentine's Day, Halloween, even for your picnic basket, and actually any other occasion you can think of. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and we'll have more great scrap ideas for you in the future.